Guru tercinta, tanpamu apa jadinya aku? Tak bisa baca tulis, mengerti banyak hal. Guruku, terima kasihku. Tercinta, nyatanya diriku kadang buatmu marah, namun segala maaf kau berikan. Namun segala maaf kau berikan. Pagiku cerahku, matahari bersinar, ku gendong tas merahku di pundak. Selamat pagi semua, ku nantikan dirimu di depan kelasmu, menantikan kami. Guruku tersayang, guru tercinta, tanpamu apa jadinya aku? Tak bisa baca tulis, mengerti banyak hal. Guruku, terima kasihku. Nyatanya diriku kadang buatmu marah, namun segala maaf kau berikan. Pagiku cerahku, matahari bersinar, ku gendong tas merahku di pundak. Selamat pagi semua, ku nantikan dirimu di depan kelasmu, menantikan kami. Guruku tersayang, guru tercinta, tanpamu apa jadinya aku? Tak bisa baca tulis, mengerti banyak hal. Guruku, terima kasihku. Nyatanya diriku kadang buatmu marah, namun segala maaf kau berikan. Namun segala maaf kau berikan.
So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Fanny and I'm going to be the moderator for today's conference. First of all, I would like to thank to Mr. Haris Tiajit, all presenters and participants for joining this conference. Before we start the presentation, I would like to inform you that there will be 4 presenters for today's conference. The parallel session is divided into 2 sections, 20 minutes for presentation, followed by 10 minutes for question and answer. In question and answer, judges will first deliver their question and then followed by questions from other participants. You may use the raise hand feature or deliver your questions through chat box. The presenter will answer the questions right away. Without any further ado, I will welcome our first presenter, Katherine Dinda Arumningtyas from Universitas Sanata Dharma to deliver her presentation entitled The Performance of YouTube Translation and Human Translation in Day 6 song, You Were Beautiful. Dinda, the time is yours.
Okay, good morning, sir, Haris, and judges, and all my friends. I'm Katherine Dinda. I will present my research with title Translation Shift Occur in YouTube Translation and Human Translation in Day 6 Song You Were Beautiful. First, my problem formulation is what types of shift occur in YouTube translation and human translation in Day 6 Song You Were Beautiful. And then the methodology of this research is I choose the topic for the research first and then choose the theory, and then I collecting some books that supporting my research, and the last I collecting data and then I analysis and make the result of the analysis. For the data collection, I read the lyrics and the lyrics in English version and Indonesian version, and then the second collecting the data, and the last is analyze and make the conclude for the result of the data. Okay, my introduction is we know that we are in the modern era that we use internet to get any information in our daily life. Internet, according to Merriam-Webster, is an electronic communication network that connects computer networking and organizational computer facilities around the world. Internet is like a new window for us to new new world in the other perspective. And then YouTube is one of the platforms that can we use in daily life, because YouTube is a video sharing service that allows users to watch video posted by other users and upload videos of their own. In the YouTube, we can find information about the genre of music. We know that the globalization that occurred in the era and make the connecting for many communities and national background. And for some people, it has become obstacle because not every people how to or know to speak with another language, right? And the translation is one of the way to achieve an understanding of cross-language communication. Translation, according to Catford, is a process or instance of translating from one language into another language and the replacement of textual material in one language by equivalent in material in another language. Development of translation make us to know about translation studies. And Catford theory is one of the best theory for translation. And the theory is about translation shift. Translation shift is changing of form when it is translated from the source language into the target language. And then the Catford translation shift, there are two categories. First is level shift or rank shift, and the second is category shift. In the level shift, it is refers to a source language item at one linguistic level that has a target language translation equivalent at different language.
Hello.
Yes? Oh, sorry.
Udah kuliah, baby.
For example, in the level shift is Irene has finished her dinner in the source language, and in the target language it is become Irene sudah selesai makan malam. Has finished in this sentence. It is a kind of tenses that has plus verb 3. In Indonesia, we don't have a grammar we don't have tenses like simple past tense or another. And has finished in this sentence, it translated into sudah in Indonesia. So the level shift is about how the translator changed the source language to target language in another level with about grammar. And then the second is about category shift. The category shift occurs when there is a change of or shift in the translation of former correspondent from equivalent form between the source language and the target language. And this shift, it is divided into 4 kinds. First is structure shift, second is class shift, third is unit shift, and the last is intra-system shift. And then I will explain about the kinds of category shift. Because in my research, I find some of the category shift in my data. First is category shift. This shift occur because there is a change in the grammatical arrangement of word order in the sentence between the source language and the target language. Catford believes that the shift in grammatical structure is a type of the translation shift that occurs most often because change can occur at all levels of language. In this structure shift, it is only focused about analyze on shift word order in the translation. For the example, I use source text stolen jewelry. In the Indonesia, it is become perhiasan yang dicuri. In Indonesia translate, it got extra word yang, because in the source text there is word that mean yang. And then the second is classic, is this translating one part of the source text into the target text at different word grade levels. As we know that there are some grade levels such as adverb, adjective, noun, pronoun, something like that. And for my example, I use source text for good, and it is translated into Indonesia become untuk selamanya. Good in the source text, it is kinds of adjective, but in the target text, it is changed to selamanya, and it is the kind of adverb. And then the third is unit shift. In the unit shift, the grammatical unit level of the language, it is changed to upward rank shift or up or downward rank shift. Because in this word shift, there can be a shift from more units lower to higher units. For example, I use the translation of a daughter. A daughter is a kind of word rank. It is translated to be anak perempuan in Indonesia. It is phrase rank. And the last is intra-system shift. In this shift, there was a shift caused by the governance of different language, of the two language involved. This change occurs internally in the language. It can be influenced by several aspects in the intransitive shift, such as the difference in the concept plurality, like my example. I use my example a pair of scissors. It is plural, and Indonesia it will be translated sebuah gunting. Gunting in Indonesia is singular, but in the source text, scissors is plural. And then I will explain about my analysis, my data. I put 5 data in my presentation. First data is every time I got out of bed, and in the auto translation YouTube, it is become setiap kali aku bangun tidur. But in the human translation, it is become setiap kali aku turun dari tempat tidur. In this data, I find that there is a unit shift from got out, it is word rank, translated into turun, that is the kind of morpheme rank. And then the second is just the way that you will look at me. And the auto translation of YouTube, it is become seperti cara Anda memandang saya. But in the human translation, it is become begitulah caramu menatapku. In this data, I find that it is kind of class shift because in the source text, just it is kind of the adjective and it is translated into pronoun that is begitulah in the Indonesia language. And the third is things will just stay the way they are. And auto YouTube translation, it is become segala sesuatunya akan tetap seperti itu. And in the human translation, it is become semuanya akan tetap seperti apa adanya. I found that this is the kind of also kind of class shift because the word things in the source text, it is noun, it is kind of noun, but it is changed to be adverb in the target text, that is semuanya. And the next is was so much I never will live. In auto translation of YouTube, it is become begitu banyak sehingga aku tidak ingin pergi. And in the human translation, it is become begitu berarti. Begitu banyak and begitu berarti is a different class. Begitu banyak or was so much, it is the kind of noun phrase. But in the target text, the translator changes to be begitu berarti. Or in the English is so meaningful, it is the kind of adjective. And the last is every time I would get upset, in the auto YouTube translation, it is become setiap kali saya akan marah Anda. But in the human translation or in the target text, it is become setiap kali aku kesal kau akan. I find level shift in this data because I would get upset. It means aku akan marah, but in the target text, the translator use aku kesal because I would get upset. It is a example of it is a grammar that has that will plus verb 1. It is a kind of simple past future tenses. In Indonesia, we don't have some kind of tenses. So the translator translated to aku kesal. And then from all my data, I find that some types of translation shift, such as class shift, unit shift, and level shift. But the most translation shift in my data is class shift. And from my analysis, I find that sometimes the automatic translation on the YouTube are not necessary with the grammar of the target text, especially in my research in the Indonesian language. And I think it's enough for my presentation. Thank you. And I will answer the question for the judges and my friends. Thank you.
Thank you, Dinda, for the presentation. Now we have 10 minutes for question and answer session. For the first judge, you may deliver your questions.
Hi, Dinda.
Hi, Nining.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. So I would like to ask, what methods did you employ in your research, and could you please explain the reasons for choosing the methods? I think that's all of my questions. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you for the question, Nining. I use library search for my method because I collect some books and journal that related to my topic, and I use Catford books to my analyze because it is related to my topic. Thank you. And another question.
Good morning, Dinda.
Good morning.
I want to ask, so what is the benefit of your study?
Thank you for the question. The benefit for this study is we know that the automatic translation on the YouTube sometimes are not necessary with the grammar of the target text. Actually, especially in my study in Indonesian language. And then the other benefits is we know that sometimes there are some translation saved in the song that we are listening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Dinda, I would like to ask why you choose translation shift in your research.
Oh, okay. Thank you for the question, Media. I choose the translation shift in my research because when I read the Indonesian lyric in automatic YouTube translation, I found some word that not really quite fit. And for me, translation shift was interesting to analyze. So it is the reason why I choose translation shift as my research.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, judges, for the questions. Now we move to the individual question. There is a question from Sir Haris. What is the object of the study?
Okay, thank you for the question, Sir Haris. The object of my study is the categories of categories of the types the categories types of shift occur in YouTube translation and human translation. In YouTube translation, I use auto translation, and in the human translation, I use the translated by Melody Haru, because in her translated, I think it is more better than another translated. So I choose Melody Haru to Indonesian version, and then I compare with YouTube YouTube translation. Thank you. Sorry, sir.
Thank you, Sir Haris, for the question. If there is no more question, I will welcome our second presenter, Saphira Leonita Sunarso from Universitas Sanata Dharma, to deliver her presentation entitled Translation Methods for Culture-Bound Expressions in the Chinese Princess, an English version of Putri Cina by Sindunata. Saphira, the time is yours.
Good morning, everybody. I want to present to you my research, translation method for culture-bound expression in the Chinese princess and English version of Putri Cina by Sindunata. Introduction. One of the problems for a translator in translating a text is when the translator needs to translate specific items that are highly related to the culture of the source language. Like what's stated by Liffen, translators need to understand the position of the source text in the source literature and the source culture. Without such knowledge, they cannot cast around for the relevant analogies in the targeted setting and the target culture. I chose the novel written by Sindunata, entitled Putri Cina, the Indonesian novel, and also the English version, entitled The Chinese Princess, translated by Katherine Dinda and Santoso. In his novel, Sindunata includes various texts, especially from Chinese and Japanese. The theory of translation. Nida and Tiber stated that translating consists in reproducing in the receptor language the closest natural equivalent of the source language. First, in terms of meaning, and secondly, in terms of style. Because I choose translation method, I choose what is written by Numa in his book. There are three methods of translation. First is word-for-word translation. Second is literal translation. Third is faithful translation. Fourth is semantic translation. Fifth, adaptation. Sixth, free translation. Seventh, idiomatic translation. And eighth, communicative translation. He also stated that he defined culture as the way of life and its manifestation that are peculiar to a community that use a particular language as a means of expression. So everything that is related to it can be said that it can be said that it is a culture-bound expression or culture-specific items. The problem formulation: what method that are used to translate culture-bound expression found in the novel? The study aims to recognize, analyze, and then categorize the translation methods that are used to translate cultural expression in the novel. I use library research. Method. So first, I collect materials such as books, journal papers, which are related to my topic. Then the theories I use as the base to examine the data. I choose only some items from the book because the novel is so thick. I haven't finished it yet. First, ia merasa lelah, lalu beristirahat di rumah seorang mantri lurah jagal, punggawa rendahan istana Majapahit. In the target text, the phrase mantri lurah jagal is translated into village chief, and the punggawa rendahan translated into lovely official. I think that is a faithful translation. The second, in page 15, maka dimintanya Jaka Prabhakaran melukis Putri Cempa, permaisuri yang amat dicintainya. In the target test, the phrase Putri Cempa, the name of Putri Cempa, is translated into Princess of Lemba. I think it's also faithful translation. And the third, Mahapati Gajah Mada mencoba menahan amarahnya dan mohon janganlah anak itu dibunuh. In the target text, the Mahapati terms is translated into chief minister. And last, Mahapati Gajah Mada berkata, jangan sampai nanti sang baginda menyesal kehilangan anak sendiri yang begitu pandai dan mapan hanya karena cerita. In the target text, His Majesty, sang baginda is translated into His Majesty because it has similar meaning, like just calling for a person in higher position. For a king. So my conclusion: there are many culture-bound terms that found in the novel, and the researcher need to continue examining the novel in order to get more accurate result. That's all from me. Judges. Fanny, you still mute.
Okay, sorry. Thank you, Saphira, for the presentation. Now for the judges, you may deliver your questions.
Hi, good morning, Saphira.
Hi, Christy, Mimi.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. So my question for you is, may I or the other friends know what is the expected result of your research? I think that is my question. Thank you.
Okay. So I hope that I can have a list of the cultural specific items, and I can find out what methods that are used to, uh, I can divide it by the methods that are used. After
Okay, thank you, Saphira, for your answers.
Okay, morning, Saphira.
morning.
My question is, in your opinion, what is the difference between the culture-born expression and the culture-specific item? Okay.
I think both are similar. I think both are the same, just different terms.
Terms.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for your answer.
Hi, Saphira.
Hi, Media.
Uh, I would like to ask why you choose the translation methods theories from Peter Newmark. Thank you.
I choose the translation method because I think there is plenty of data that I can find in Novel, and it can be divided into more detailed detailed ways, perhaps categories.
Um, do you think the theory from Newmark is the most suitable for you?
I'm still considering it, actually.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, judges, for the questions, and thank you, Saphira, for the answers. Now we move to the individual question. For those who have questions, you may use the raise hand feature or write down your questions in the chat box. Okay, if there is no question from the participants, I will welcome our third presenter, Nafi Shafna Kartika from Universitas Sanata Dharma to deliver her presentation entitled The Translation of NCT 127 Song, Highway to Heaven, Korean and English version, a study of translation strategy. Nafi, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Fanny. Can you all see my presentation file now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, friends, Fanny and Saharis. Today I will deliver my paper about the translation of NCT 127 song, Highway to Heaven, Korean and English version, a study of translation strategy. First, we will go to the introduction of my paper. So, language have a big role in our lives. Language also play a big role in the music industries because language used by the musician to deliver their message or their feelings through language, and the language will give a lot of impacts to the audience. And Korean music industries become more popular these days. and they find a new way to make themselves more popular than they were. One of the way is to releasing the translated English version, because I think the English version will become more understandable by for the audience, and become more fluent and more easier to be understood about the message from the song. Actually, there are so many groups that have republished their song on the English version, and one of the famous is NCT 127 with their song entitled Highway to Heaven with the English version. And the result of the English version of Korean Highway to Heaven became the 5th place on the Billboard chart on 2019. And this is triggered the research reader or me and give me a question about if the English version gains its popularity, so how the translated version could resemble the same message of the original version. So that's the introduction. We will move to the objective of the paper. So the objective of the study is to identify what kind of translation strategies applied in the English and Korean version of NCT 127 selected song Highway to Heaven. And this objective give a research question. What kind of translation strategies applied in the English version of Korean NCT 127's Highway to Heaven? Okay. We will move to my step to do this research. So there are three steps. For the first one, music lyric reading through online reading for the both version, Korean and English version. And then the second one, I analyze the data and grouping them by the characteristic for the translation strategies. And then the last, I write the results of my analysis in this paper. Okay. All of the data were analyzed by the Peter Newmark theory of translation strategies from the book entitled A Book of Translation by Peter Newmark, published in 1988. There are 8 types of translation strategies that introduced by Peter Newmark. We will go to the brief explanation. First, word-for-word translation strategies. Word-for-word translation is often demonstrated as interlinear translation with the TL immediately below the SL word. For the example, I know you translated into aku tahu kamu. And next, the second one, we have the literal translation strategy. The strategy is the SL grammatical construction are converted to their nearest TL equivalent. For the example, in the right side, translated into di sisi kanan. The third translation strategy is faithful translation strategies. The strategies attempts to reproduce the precise of contextual meaning of the original text, and it attempts to be completely faithful to the intentions. For the example, he is too good to be true, translated into dia sangat baik untuk menjadi benar. The fourth translation strategy is semantic translation strategies. The strategy admits the creative exception to 100 fidelity and allows the translator's intuitive empathy with the original. For the example, bookworm will be translated into seseorang yang gemar membaca. The next translation strategy is adaptation. This strategy is the freest form of translation. Usually, the SL culture converted into TL culture and the text is rewritten. For the example, yang terhormat Bapak atau Ibu will be translated into dear sir or madam. The next is free translation strategies. This strategy reproduces the matter without the manner or the content without the form of the original, and it usually for a phrase much longer than the origin form. For the example, piece of cake translated into mudah sekali. And 7 is the idiomatic translation strategy. Idiomatic translation strategy reproduces the message of the original but tends to distort nuance by meaning by preferring colloquialism and idioms where these do not exist in the origin. For the example, excuse me asking for the repetition will be translated into maksudnya in Indonesia for asking the repetition rather than permisi untuk for asking for the repetition. And the last strategy is the communicative translation strategy. This strategy attempts to render the exact contextual meaning of the original and acceptable to the readership. For the example, keep off the grass translated into dilarang menginjak rumput. Okay, that's all for the translation strategies by Peter Newmark. And now we will move to the findings of this paper. The first findings is on the analysis of data found for word-for-word translation strategies. For the Korean version, oh, yeah, translated into the English version into oh, yeah. And both of them translated again to the Indonesia version, to the Indonesian. For the Korean version, oh, yeah, and the English version, oh, yeah. This is categorized as the word-for-word translation because the English version were translated word by word from the Korean version. So, and next, we will move to the analysis of data found for literal translation. For the Korean version, Mol Gidarigo is so. Translated into the English version, girl, who are you waiting for? And both of them translated again to Indonesian. For the Korean, what are you tunggu? And for the English version, gadis siapa yang kau tunggu? This is categorized as the literal because the English version are translated the literal from the Korean version. One of the differences is for the English version, it asking for what, and for the English version, it asking for who. The next is the analysis data found for the faithful translation. For the Korean version, no wanna highway to heaven, and translated to the English version, we will take the highway to the heaven. Both of them translated into kau. For the Korean, kau dan aku jalan menuju surga, and for the English, kita akan mengambil jalan raya untuk ke surga. So the contextual meaning about the Korean version and the English version is still the same. One of the differences about Nowana in the Korean version, based on the Kamus Aku Korea Indonesia Korea, are translated into kamu dan aku, which is you and me. And the English version, they translated you and me into we. So they still have the same subject and they still do the same action. There is go to the highway to the heaven. The next is the analysis of data found for semantic translation. In the Korean version, one handamyeon make you hide tarawa. For the English version, translated into girl, I wanna make you mine, spend some time. And for the kiwi, translated into Indonesian, jika kamu mau membuatmu tinggi, ikuti saya. And for the English version, gadis, aku ingin membuatmu jadi milikku, habiskan waktu denganmu. So, this is categorized as the semantic translation because it allows the translator intuitive empathy with the original, showed by the words, aku ingin membuatmu jadi milikku, which give the explanation about someone that totally falling in love or feeling something with somebody else. The next is the analysis data found for free translation. For the Korean version, Silsuhedodwe Kicho repeat, translated into girl, I got your loving on repeat. Both of them translated into Indonesian. For the Korean version, kita bisa membuat kesalahan, ulangi saja. And for the English version, gadis, aku terus mendapatkan cintamu. This is categorized as the free translation because both of them are almost talking the same thing, but they utter it in the different sentence. While the key points of the optimism by the words, kita bisa membuat kesalahan, ulangi saja. And for the English version, aku terus mendapatkan cintamu. So I think this is the free translation. The next is analysis data found for idiomatic translation. For the Korean version, 함께 있는 이것이 천국인 걸 will be translated into the English version on the 101. Let's see just where it goes. Both of them translated again into the Indonesian. For the Korean, dimanapun kita bersama itu adalah surga. And for the EV, pada Jalan Raya 101, mari kita lihat kemana perginya. So, I believe that the 101 is the idiom for heaven. Because 101 is the popular road that have a long shape smooth in the California, and I think the translator used 101 to help the audience to get a clearer image about the smooth way to go to the heaven. Okay, and next. Last is the analysis data found for the communicative translation. For the Korean version, I will show you the word 지금부터. Translated into the English version, I will show you the word if you say so. And both of them translated again to the Indonesian version. For the Korean, aku akan menunjukkan kepadamu dunia mulai sekarang. And for the English version, aku akan tunjukkan dunia jika kau memintanya. This is categorized as the communicative translation because both of them have the same communicative message on the Korean and English version. The Korean version show the clearance of time with the 지금부터, which based on Kamus Kaku Korea Indonesia Indonesia Korea translated into mulai sekarang or from now on in English. And the EV omit the clearance of time and only and the speaker said that he or she will show the word if the audience want to. So the main communicative message is still there. I will show you the word. The one of the difference is the kifi with the clearance of time and the ifi without the clearance of time. Now we move to the conclusion of this paper. The first conclusion is the most frequent translation strategies legible is free translation with 31% of occurrence of 13 times, followed by word-for-word translation with 24% with the occurrence of 10 times. And the lowest translation strategies is adaptation with 0% with 0 occurrence. Okay, that's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Nafi, for the presentation. Now we have 10 minutes for the question and answer session. For the judges, you may deliver your questions.
Hi, Nafi.
Hi, Nining.
For the presentation. I would like to ask, what are the implications of your findings? Thank you.
I will answer your question. The implication of my findings is actually people may think that being a fan of Korean K-pop is wasting time, but actually behind that issues, any little things we did, we can take a lesson from it. And for my case, I spend a lot of my time for do fangirling, almost 10 years, and I have a lot of knowledge that I can use in my daily life. So I will with this paper, I want people start to change their mind that being a fan of a group is not wasting time because we can learn a lot of things from them. Okay, I think that's all my answer for your question, Nining. Thank you.
Okay, morning, Nafi.
Morning.
My question is, so you choose Korean and English.
Yes.
I want to ask, are you like translated by yourself from Korean to Indonesian?
No, I
No?
take it from YouTube. YouTube account.
Ah, okay. And another question, why you choose like Korean and English and then using Indonesian translation to explain for border explanation? Why don't you just do it only Korean and English? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. I will answer your question. Why I choose Indonesian translation rather than just using English? Because Indonesian is my native language. So I think it will be easier for me if I analyze them with my native language. So the answer is to help me easier to analyze the data.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Nafi.
Hi, Media.
I want to ask, in your opinion, what makes free translation as the most strategy used in the song Highway to Heaven?
Okay, thank you for your question. I will answer your question. I think why free translation is the most used translation strategies because, as you know, music is related to the lyrics, and the lyrics itself related to the rhyme and the syllable. And I think it will be easier for the translator if they choose the free translation strategies rather than other strategies. I think that's all. Because the free translation strategies have the aim to translating without the form of the original. So I think that's my question, my answer for your question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Media.
Thank you, judges, for the questions, and thank you, Nafi, for the answers. Now we move to the individual question. If you have questions, you may use the raise hand feature or write down your questions in the chat box. If there is no question from the participants, I will welcome our fourth presenter, Rut Gracia Laempasa from Universitas Sanata Dharma, to deliver her presentation entitled Comparing Google Translate and Bing Translator in Translating Sport News in New York Times, and Error Analysis. Ruth, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you, moderator. Can you see my screen?
No.
Not yet.
Yes, for now.
Oh, okay. Okay. Good morning, Sir Haris and friends. I'm going to discuss my research about my research with the title Comparing Google Translate and Bing Translator in Translating Sport News in New York Times and Error Analysis. So the background skills in understanding English text or writing are considered difficult for students because of their limited vocabulary and weak grammar. Because of this case, students often rely on the help of online machine translators that are now widely provided on the internet as a shortcut in understanding a text or in writing. Besides making it easier for students to translate, it is also very practical to use and saves time. In recent years, it has grown in sophistication and accessibility beyond what we imagine. The convenience provided by this online machine translator makes users forget about the accuracy of the translation. So the benefit of the study, the benefit of this research that gain knowledge about translation in both machine translation, Google Translate and Bing Translator, and knows the shift in translation which can lead to improper meaning in a text. So the problem formulation of my research, the first one is what types of errors occur in Google Translate and Bing Translator in translating news using, using component. The second one is how is the performance of Google Translate and Bing Translator in translating news. So objective of the study, the objective of the study is to find out the errors in the English news translated to Indonesian by Google Translate and Bing Translator and classifying them based on the types of errors using components theory. The second objective is to see the difference in accuracy in translation, to compare the performance of each type of machine translation in translating the English news to Indonesian. The method of the study. The method of this study in this research is literature study in related studies and theories. The researcher collects definitions related to translation, machine translation, as well as previous theories and analyses that have topics related to this analysis with the aim of assisting in that data analysis. The researcher uses qualitative research. Qualitative research refers to whatever research results are taken in words, pictures, or non-numeric symbols by George. In collecting my data, there are 4 steps. The first one is translate and categorize, translating the news per sentences using both MTs. There are Google Translate and Bing Translator at the same time, and categorizing them in a table. The second one is analysis, analyzing the errors using theory of component. The third one is comparing the errors made by both MTs. The last one is result and conclusion. Make the result and conclusion, which one is better, more accurate in translating. Components theory. The research uses components theory of error classification to find out the errors that have been done by each MT in translating the object that the researcher chose. Component divides the errors into 2 categories, concept and relations. But in my presentations, I will explain the example of the data about the errors only by concepts. So individual concepts are concepts that are only conveyed through content words such as nouns, verbs, and adjectives. So the first one is omitted concept, means source text concept that is not conveyed by the target text. For example, DST, his wife was looking out of the window, and and the titi, istrinya sedang keluar dari jendela. And the second one is added concept, mean target text concept that is not present in the source text. The ST, she like the hotel keeper, but in TT, dia menyukai penjaga hotel Prusia. The third one is mistranslated concept, means target text concept has the wrong meaning for the context. As the ST, the poor kitty out. The TT, kucing miskin keluar. Next one is untranslated concept, means source language words that appear in target text. For example, the ST, and glistened in the rain, and di TT, dan glistened dalam hujan. The next one is substituted concept, means target text concept is not a direct lexical equivalent for the source text concept, but can be considered a valid replacement for the context. For example, ST, his wife looked out of the window. The TT, istrinya menjenguk dari jendela. The next one is explicated concept, means target text concept explicitly states information left implicit in source text without adding information. Di ST, there were big palms, and di TT, ada pohon besar. The next one is relations. Relations are expressed through function words, inflection, and word order. The first one is added participant, means target text relation not present in source text introducing an added concept. For example, DST in such a way that, and DTT dalam sedemikian rupa sehingga. The next one is added relation, means target text relation not present in source text arises due to morphosyntactic errors. For example, DST, the padron made her feel very small. The TT, padron yang membuatnya merasa sangat kecil. The next one is mistaken participant, means head or dependent on the relation different in source text and target text, not the same entity. For the example, the ST, he was an old man. The TT, dia adalah tua manusia. The next one is mistaken relation, means the relation between two concepts different in source text and target text change roles. For example, the ST, she hadn't looked away from her since she started to speak. Di TT, dia tidak melihat darinya karena dia mulai berbicara. The next one is substituted participant, means head or dependent of the relation is different in source text and target text. Same entity. DST, citizens who are national of, and DTT, warga negara dari. The next one is substituted relation, means relation between two concepts that is different in source text and target text, same semantic roles. For example, the ST, the Treaty of Lisbon amends, and the TT with the Treaty of Lisbon is amended. The next one is omitted participant, means source text relation not conveyed by the target text due to an omitted head or dependent. For example, the ST, I'm going down and get that kitty. Di TT, aku akan mendapatkan kucing itu. The next one is omitted relation, means source text relation not conveyed by the target text due to morphosyntactic errors that prevent parsing the relation although both concepts are present in target text. For the example, the ST, lying propped up with the two pillows at the foot in the bed. But in the TT, berbaring didukung dengan bantal dua kaki tempat tidur. So the discussion, as I told before, in my data, I will explain only about the errors based on concept. This is the source text. The source text is FIFA wants its new tournament to eventually have a stature similar to the World Cups. The translation by GT, FIFA ingin turnamen barunya pada akhirnya memiliki status yang mirip dengan Piala Dunia. While the BT translation is, FIFA ingin turnamen barunya memiliki sosok yang mirip dengan Piala Dunia. An omitted concept appears where the concept in the target text that should appear in the target text is not conveyed. The word eventually does not appear in the target text by BT. Because of the omission of the word eventually made by BT, the concept in the ST does not have the equal meaning as in the SD. Meanwhile, in Google Translate, the word eventually translated into pada akhirnya. Therefore, the concept in ST is conveyed clearly in Google Translate. The second data is, so the ST is, FIFA has found itself in a hurry to get the financing it requires. The translation by GT, FIFA telah terburu-buru untuk mendapatkan pembiayaan yang dibutuhkan. While the translation by BT, FIFA telah mendapati dirinya terburu-buru untuk mendapatkan pembiayaan yang disyaratkan. So the translation of word requires into disyaratkan is not a direct lexical equivalent. Although it looks like there are no errors, but the word disyaratkan is inaccurate in conveying what is meant in the ST context. But it still can be considered as a valid replacement for the context, although not quite as precise as a translation of GT as dibutuhkan. The third one, the ST, the participation of the top European clubs. The translation by GT, partisipasi klub-klub top Eropa, while the translation by BT, partisipasi dari klub Eropa atas. So in this data appears mistranslated concept when the selection of word in the target text has the wrong meaning for the context. The adjective top has the wrong meaning in the target text by BT. This one, and the word top, according to Oxford, means the highest part or point of something, but in the translation by BT, conveying that it was the participation of clubs in the upper European countries. Meanwhile, the ST has meaning as a European top clubs. So the next data, the ST is hires US firm to find it. The translation by GT mempekerjakan perusahaan Amerika Serikat untuk menemukannya, while the translation by BT hires perusahaan Amerika Serikat untuk menemukannya. In this data appears an untranslated concept where the word in the source language is not translated into the target text. The word hires is not translated by BT in the target text. By not translating this word, BT failed to convey the meaning of the target text. The word should be translated as mempekerjakan, as translation by GT as appropriate to the context. So the last data, the ST is FIFA has turned to an American financial advisory firm to jumpstart its efforts. The translation by GT, FIFA telah beralih ke perusahaan penasihat keuangan Amerika untuk memulai. While the translation by BT, FIFA telah beralih ke sebuah perusahaan penasihat keuangan Amerika untuk melompat memulai. In this data, an explicated concept appears where the concept of the target text explicitly states the information left on the ST without adding information. The verb jump in the source text is omitted by GT, whereas the verb jump in BT is also translated into the target text as melompat. So the conclusion, the errors found in Bing Translator are one omitted concept, one substituted concept, and one mistranslated concept, while the error found in Google Translate is only one that is one explicated concept. So based on this analysis, the researcher could not make decision whether Google Translate or Bing Translation is more accurate, because there are still 30 sentences that need sorry there are still 30 sentences that need to be analyzed based concept and 35 sentences based on relation. So far in these 5 data, Google Translate was doing well than Bing Translator. The expected result is Google Translate is more accurate than the Bing Translator. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth, for the presentation. Now we move to the question and answer session for the judges. You may deliver your questions.
Hi, Ruth.
Hi, Ning.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. So, as what I know, there are some sections you can find in the New York Times. And my question is, what makes you choose sport news as the object of your research over the other sections? So I think that is my question. Thank you in advance.
Thank you, Nining, for the question. So when I was looking for the news at the New York Times website, at the time, most of the news that appeared were politics and sport, and I'm not interested at all in anything related to politics. So therefore, I prefer to sport than the other section. Is it enough?
The next judge, you may deliver your question.
Okay, my question is, I read several research paper about machine translation, and mostly they use component error analysis. So in your opinion, why the researchers tend to choose component error analysis? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I'm not pretty sure about why the other researcher use component theory, but for me, component theory is more easier to understand. And I have read another theory which is Casavar theory, but for me, Casavar theory is not quite easy to understand, and it is still related to linguistic.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
You.
Hi, Ruth. I would like to ask, what makes you interested in analyzing the comparison of two different translation engines? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Media, for the question. So I use both of machine translation, the Google Translate and Bing Translator in daily activities in translating, and I was wondering which one is more accurate in translating. Therefore, I'm interested comparing comparing Google Translate and Bing Translator in translating a word or text. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, judges, for the questions, and thank you, Ruth, for the answers. Now we come to the individual questions. If you have question, you may use the raise hand feature or write down your question in the chat section. Okay, if there is no more questions from the participants, we come to the end of our conference today. Thank you for the presenters, judges, and participants for joining our conference. See you in the
Thank you,
conference
moderator.
next week.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pagiku cerahku, matahari bersinar, ku gendong tas merahku di pundak. Selamat pagi semua, ku nantikan dirimu di depan kelasmu, menantikan kami. Guruku tersayang, guru tercinta, tanpamu apa jadinya aku? Tak bisa baca tulis, mengerti banyak hal. Guruku, terima kasihku. Nyatanya diriku kadang buatmu marah, namun segala maaf kau berikan. Pagiku cerahku, matahari bersinar, ku gendong tas merahku di pundak. Selamat pagi semua, ku nantikan dirimu di depan kelasmu, menantikan kami. Guruku tersayang, guru tercinta, tanpamu apa jadinya aku? Tak bisa baca tulis, mengerti banyak hal. Guruku, terima kasihku. Nyatanya diriku kadang buatmu marah, namun segala maaf kau berikan. Namun segala maaf kau berikan. Pagiku cerahku, matahari bersinar, ku gendong tas merahku di pundak. Selamat pagi semua, ku nantikan dirimu di depan kelasmu, menantikan kami. Guruku tersayang, guru tercinta, tanpamu apa jadinya aku? Tak bisa baca tulis, mengerti banyak hal. Guruku, terima kasihku. Nyatanya diriku kadang buatmu marah, namun segala Pagiku cerahku, matahari bersinar, ku gendong tas merahku di pundak. Selamat pagi semua, ku nantikan dirimu di depan kelasmu, menantikan kami. Guruku tersayang, guru tercinta, tanpamu apa jadinya aku? Tak bisa baca tulis, mengerti banyak hal. Guruku, terima kasihku. Nyatanya diriku kadang buatmu marah, namun segala maaf kau berikan, namun segala